All right, let's just jump right in. Ever feel like you're playing a game but nobody told you the rules? Well, that's kind of what managing money feels like in 2026. What if I told you that feeling financially stuck probably has less to do with how much you make and everything to do with not knowing how money really works today? With inflation, AI, the whole shebang, the game has totally changed. So, let's get you ahead of the curve.
This quote from Pranjal Kamra absolutely nails it. The biggest problem we're all facing right now, it's just noise. So much noise. You open up Instagram or TikTok, and what do you see? You're just slammed with so-called finfluencers, posing with rented Lambos and screaming about the next crypto that's going to 100x. Let's be real. They aren't selling you a financial plan. They're selling you a lottery ticket, and that's a losing game.
So that's the big question, right? Here we are in 2026, prices for everything are going up, inflation is kind of silently stealing our money, and we've got a million different gurus telling us what to do. How on earth do you find what's actually true? How do you build a system for your money that actually works for you, not for them? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down step by step.
Okay, so first things first, let's just reframe this whole thing. We're taking back control. And personal finance, it's not some secret language for Wall Street nerds. Seriously, think of it like the operating system for your life. It's what runs in the background to help you achieve everything you want.
When you boil it all down, it's really this simple. It's just managing the money that comes in and the money that goes out. That's it. But the goal is huge. It's about building a life where you have more stability, more freedom, and way, way less stress. It's the foundation for literally everything else you want to do.
And this right here is probably the most important thing to get. This is not about getting rich. It's not about having a mansion or a fancy car. It's about being in charge. It's about you being the boss of your money, not the other way around. Whether you're making your first paycheck or your millionth, it's about calling the shots.
So how do we actually do it? How do we get in charge? Well, forget all the confusing advice, forget the complicated spreadsheets. I'm going to give you a simple 5-step plan. Think of it as your blueprint for total financial clarity.
So here's the game plan. First, we protect your future. That's defense. Then we build your safety net for when life throws you a curveball. Step 3 is locking in your retirement. Your future self is going to thank you for this one. Then we get to the fun part, investing for your goals. And finally, the secret sauce. We automate the whole system. Let's dig into each one.
All right, step 1, protect your future. Think of this as building the foundation of your financial house. Before you even think about investing in stocks or anything exciting, you have to build a fortress. That means 2 things. Term insurance, to make sure your family is okay no matter what, and health insurance because honestly, one bad medical emergency can completely wipe out years of hard work. This is non-negotiable. Okay, next up, step 2, build that safety net. Look, life happens, right? The car breaks down, the roof leaks, maybe you lose your job. It's gonna happen. An emergency fund is your superpower. We're talking 6 to 8 months of your core living expenses just sitting in an account you can get to easily. This isn't an investment, it's an insurance policy against stress and debt. It lets you sleep at night.
All right, step 3, lock in your retirement. Now, this one is super interesting because it's all about psychology. We are wired to care more about right now than some distant future. And that's why retirement accounts like the National Pension Scheme are so brilliant. Their best feature isn't necessarily the investment returns, it's that they make it hard for you to raid the piggy bank. They basically protect your future self from your current self.
And why is that so critical? Well, it all comes down to this one pretty scary number.
86%. That is a staggering number of people who get to retirement and wish they'd done more. They thought they had more time. They thought they'd get to it later, but later never came. Taking this step right now is how you make sure you are not one of them. Period.
Okay, so now that your foundation is solid, it's time to go on offense. This is where we combine steps 4 and 5, invest and automate. For any goal that's 5 years out or more, buying a house, your kid's education, investing is how you actually grow your money. And you don't have to be a Wall Street wizard. A simple mutual fund, like an index or FlexiCap fund, is usually more than enough. But here's the real magic. You put it on autopilot. You set up an SIP, an automatic investment, for the day your salary hits your account. That way, it's done before you can even think about it. And that leads us to this quote, which is maybe the most powerful idea in all of personal finance. This is the secret to modern budgeting. We've all been taught to spend our money and then try to save whatever's left over at the end of the month. It never works. This flips it. You invest first. You pay your future self first. And then you're free to spend whatever's left. It's a system, not a restriction. And that's why it actually works.
All right, we've covered the what to do, but just as important, maybe even more important, is knowing what not to do. Seriously, avoiding these common money traps is half the battle won.
The first one is the absolute silent killer of wealth. It's called lifestyle inflation. Here's how it works. You get a raise and you think, great, I can finally afford that bigger apartment, or that nicer car, or all those extra subscriptions. But before you know it, your expenses have risen right along with your income. You're making more money, but you're still living paycheck to paycheck. You're just as stuck, but with more expensive stuff.
And Pranjal Kamra hits the nail on the head with this. The biggest mistake is locking yourself into bigger, fixed expenses. See, once you sign that lease for the price of your apartment or take out that loan for the new car, you're on the hook. You've lost your freedom, your flexibility. And weirdly enough, your stress levels actually go up, even though you're earning more.
Okay, next trap, IPOs. The hype machine goes into overdrive for these, right? All you hear are stories about people becoming millionaires overnight. But let's talk about the reality. A company goes for an IPO because they need to raise a ton of money. And often, they're coming to you, the public, because the really smart money, like big banks and professional investors, already said no.
Just ask yourself this one simple, critical question. If you owned a business that was a gold mine, would you sell off pieces of it to strangers at a discount? No way! You wouldn't. The truth is, you're not getting a bargain. You're being sold a story. And trust me, the game is almost always stacked against the average person in an IPO.
And the last trap, credit cards. Oh, the rewards, the points, the cashback. It sounds so tempting. But we have to remember who we're up against. Banks employ armies of PhDs in psychology whose entire job is to get you to spend more money than you have. It's an unfair fight. For almost everyone, that little bit of cashback just isn't worth the risk of overspending and getting buried in debt.
So, when you look at all these steps and all these traps, you start to realize something. It all boils down to one single thing: your mindset. The how-to part is actually pretty simple. It's the way you think about money that changes everything.
And that mindset really comes down to which of these two questions you're asking yourself. The entire internet, all the hype, it's all pushing you to ask the wrong question. How do I get rich fast? And that path that leads to risky bets and disappointment. The right question, the one that actually works, is how do I build wealth that lasts? That one's about patience. It's about systems. It's about building real, lasting freedom.
So if you're going to remember anything from this, remember these 4 things. 1, build systems. Don't just make budgets. 2, ignore the hype, the IPOs, the so-called credit card hacks. It's just noise. 3, actually understand what you're putting your money into. And 4, most important of all, play the long game. You have to think in decades, not days. That is the real secret.
Look, building real wealth isn't about some heroic one-time action. It's about the small, almost boring, consistent things you do every single day. The person you're going to be in 10 years, they're counting on the choices you make this week. So I'll leave you with this. What's the one small thing you're going to do this week to get started? Your future self is waiting.